Thanks again for joining us. Before the commercial break, we were talking about the Canadian-Cuban who's in prison, Kerry Abedin. He's only 19. He's since contracted herpes. He looks yellow. We're concerned about his liver function. There's concern about his mental health, his physical health, his safety. What are the conditions like in these prisons?
The conditions are terrible. Prisons are filled with infections. Michael faces episodes of violence. He has to relate in prison, so there's violence going on in prison.
Right.
So he's in a very dangerous location. We're very concerned that he only got to see a doctor approximately a couple of weeks ago, and that was due to pressure because the case had been reported in the media here in Canada,
right,
on Cuban independent media sites as well. So the regime felt pressure, and that's how a doctor was sent to see him. But he hasn't got any medical tests, which are essential.
And I take it the doctor reports to the Cuban government?
Yes, it's a doctor that goes to prison.
So how can we trust what his report is?
Exactly. So we just saw Michael, but hasn't properly sent him to do any tests or anything like that.
So what can be done? So he happens to be a dual citizen. He's Canadian and Cuban. He, again, was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He got shipped out to this prison in Cuba. Apparently, you said he was had tickets. He was on the way to fly to Canada very soon.
Yes, he was on his way to come to study here at university in July before he was arrested. At the end of July, he had tickets to fly to Canada. So all his future was destroyed. I think Canadian society, in the same way that it rallied for the two Michaels in China, it should rally for this third Michael in Cuba, in prison there. People should pressure the government to be more active. We are now.
So what has happened? Has the Canadian consul or the embassy in Cuba, have they gotten involved? Do we still have okay diplomatic relations? I don't know what the status of those are.
Canada and Cuba has full relations. The Canadian embassy in Cuba tried to see Michael in prison on 2 occasions. It was denied by the Cuban government. We've sent letters to Global Affairs. They're aware of the case. They say they're working on it. So we're working with them and trying to reach out. There are Canadian human rights lawyers involved in the case, centers in Canada involved. And there has been a story of solidarity too, because Michael's mother in Cuba, she had a fire in her apartment in April, so she doesn't even have electricity, cannot work. So I've reached out to NGOs in Spain to help her, say, for example, with cell phone data to get internet.
So that way she can communicate with you, and you're here on the ground in Canada trying to help her.
Exactly, and with lawyers and with...
And why Spain? Why did you reach out to? Why is she reaching out to Spain?
Probably Cuban human rights groups and human rights are all over, so Spain would be one. But here in Canada, the human rights lawyers are also working on the case, reaching out to the government to do something about him.
So what has the government done?
The government so far has only said that they are aware of the case, but nothing else has been done. The Canadian government hasn't provided with medicine. For example, I had to reach out to another NGO for the herpes medication, aciclovir, which the mother couldn't get in Cuba anywhere.
Well, yes.
Anyway, because there's scarcity of food, the scarcity of medication in Cuba, and that was provided by another NGO that
Now, I remember when we were covering, you mentioned the two Michaels in China, or in China. When we were covering the two Michaels case, one issue, and it wasn't necessarily particular to them, but one factor that was emerging is that China doesn't recognize dual citizens. So if you're a Canadian-Chinese citizen and you get in trouble with the government, even in Hong Kong now, because China controls that as well, or in mainland China, they don't recognize your consular rights, if you will, as a Canadian, because they don't recognize your citizenship. Is that the same for Cuba?
It is because the Cuban regime doesn't recognize dual citizenship. But I think the Canadian government can speak up, can reach out to the Cuban regime. They have excellent relations and inquire about what's going on with Michael. I think that would go a long way if they reach out and speak up, and society in general. I know, for example, I've reached out to Senator Leo Husacus, his help has been very valuable in the cause of democracy in Cuba. He said he will follow up on the case. I've reached out to other MPs as well, and NGOs to rally society.
And will that help? We only have about 25 seconds before commercial, but would that help, having a Canadian senator kind of stick his nose in what's going on there? Will that agitate the government enough to do something?
I think it will. Dictatorships respond to pressure. And Michael has been wrongfully accused. He's not even an activist, just a young student, never involved in anything. So I think it will. Pressure will work.